Well, hello there and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024, National Vanilla Ice Cream Day in the US of A. It's also National Sprinkles Day. Probably not a coincidence, right? Because a lot of people love to put sprinkles, known in some places as jimmies, for whatever reason, on their ice cream. Either way, enjoy some today. In the headlines, President Biden, who has been at his Delaware beach house, is traveling back to the White House this afternoon ahead of his meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tomorrow. It is absolutely amazing how in the past 36 hours or so, Joe Biden has become one of the greatest presidents of all time. Democrats who kicked him off the ticket and the media who were turning against him after covering for him all of this time are all tripping over each other now to talk about his amazing presidency and legacy and switching the cover-up to the vice president, right? This is one of the new Trump campaign ads.
Kamala was in on it. She covered up Joe's obvious mental decline.
Our president is in good shape, in good health, tireless, vibrant, and I have no doubt about the strength of the work that we have done.
But Kamala knew Joe couldn't do the job, so she did it. Look what she got done. A border invasion, runaway inflation, the American dream dead. They created this mess. Kamala owns this failed record. Make America Great Again Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
In a little more than a week, former President Donald Trump came within a quarter of an inch of being assassinated. President Biden gave up his nomination for a second term, and Vice President Harris is now the party's choice, most of the party's choice, to replace Biden as the nominee. Imagine if you did one of those vacations to a remote island like St. Lucia, or you were in Costa Rica, something totally disconnected, right? No phone, no social media, where people say, I'm going off the grid for a week or 2 weeks. But first, we have to talk about what happened on Capitol Hill yesterday.
Good morning, Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Raskin, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Kimberly Cheatle, and I am the Director of the United States Secret Service. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today. The assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump on July 13th is the most significant operational failure of the Secret Service in decades, and I am keeping him and his family in my thoughts. I would like to offer my sincerest condolences to the family of Corey Comparator, a former fire chief and a hero who was killed in this senseless shooting. I would also like to acknowledge those who were injured in Butler, David Dutch and James Copenhagen, and I wish them a speedy recovery. I would be remiss if I did not also extend my condolences on the passing of your colleague, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Ms. Jackson Lee was always engaged in the oversight of the Secret Service, and her passing is a great loss to this body. The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency. We are fully cooperating with ongoing investigations. We must learn what happened, and I will move heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again. Let me state unequivocally, nothing I have said should be interpreted to place blame for this failure on our federal, state, or local law enforcement partners who supported the Secret Service in Butler. We could not do our job without them. We rely on the relationships built over years of working together to secure events and conduct investigations. Our agents, officers, and support personnel understand that every day we are expected to sacrifice our lives to execute a no-fail mission. As witnessed on July 13th, our special agents shielded former President Trump with their own bodies on stage while shots were being fired. Selflessly willing to make the ultimate sacrifice without hesitation, I am proud beyond words of the actions taken by the former president's detail, the counter-sniper team who neutralized the gunman, and the tactical team who was prepared to act. I will be transparent as possible when I speak with you, understanding, though, at times that I may be limited in providing a thorough response in this open setting due to associated risks with sharing highly sensitive protective methodologies. I do not want to inadvertently provide you today with inaccurate information.
That is the first 2.5 minutes or so of the Secret Service Director's opening statements to the House Oversight and Accountability Committee. This is Congressman James Comer, chair of the committee.
Today's witness, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle, is here under subpoena to answer questions about how the agency failed President Trump and the victims who attended the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. It is my firm belief, Director Cheatle, that you should resign. However, in complete defiance, Director Cheatle has maintained she will not tender her resignation. Therefore, she will answer questions today from members of this committee seeking to provide clarity to the American people about how these events were allowed to transpire. We will ask these questions because the Secret Service and its parent agency, the Department of Homeland Security, have been unwilling to provide answers to the American people.
James Comer, Jim Jordan, Byron Donalds, several other Republicans and Democrats on the committee, including Jamie Raskin, all called for Cheatle to resign. The word fireworks is often used to describe contentious hearings on Capitol Hill, right? Or the subject was grilled. You will hear that about 100 times today, 1,000 times this week. But the level of grilling, if you would, and contentiousness in this hearing was more at atomic bomb level, and Director Cheatle was basically eviscerated.
No, you knew that everyone knew. The people there knew that there was a danger. They knew there was a threat to President Trump, and it was allowed to happen. Was there a stand-down order, Ms. Cheatle? No. Was there a conspiracy to kill President Trump?
Absolutely not.
Then how did this happen? And why are you still sitting here not turning in your letter of resignation?
Do you really believe at this moment, given how divided the country is and the questions asked, that your service in this role is the best for the nation? I mean, I'm not saying you can't do public service again, you can't do something else again. Do you really genuinely in your heart believe that you being in this role is what's right for America at this moment? I mean, do you think there are people who are Trump supporters who have confidence in you? The one thing that we've got to have agencies in this country that are transcend politics, that have the confidence of independents, Democrats, Republicans, progressives, conservatives. Do you really believe that the majority of this country has confidence in you right now?
I believe that the country deserves answers, and I am committed to finding those answers.
Both sides of the aisle today have asked for your resignation. Would you like to use my 5 minutes to draft your resignation letter, yes or no?
No, thank you.
Was this a colossal failure?
It was a failure.
Yes or no? Was it a colossal failure is the question. Yes or no?
I have admitted this is a terrible...
This is a yes or no series of questions. Was this a colossal failure? Yes or no?
Yes.
Would you say leaking your opening statement to Punchbowl News, Politico's Playbook, and Washington Post several hours before you sent it to this committee as being political? Yes or no?
I have no idea how my statement got out.
Well, that's bullshit. Have you provided all audio and video recordings in your possession to this committee, as we asked on July 15th, yes or no?
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of today. 9 days in, you have no answers. How many minutes went by between the time law enforcement saw and took photos of crooks and the shooting? How many minutes?
I am still verifying
57
timelines.
minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Awesome. Congresswoman Nancy Mace, Republican of South Carolina, thank you for your service today. It's so necessary. Man, what is up with this person and what's going on?
I mean, she was so defiant. She dodged every question, would not answer. She wouldn't even tell us how many Secret Service agents were on the ground at the rally that day protecting Donald Trump. She just refused. I mean, whether it's contempt of Congress, whether it's impeachment, if she's not going to resign, she should be fired. She was very defiant. I thought it was very offensive, and the American people aren't tolerating it.
I found her also very kind of like bureaucratic, like kind of sly in a weird way, but it was so obvious. And she gave herself all kinds of outs, or let herself off the hook. For instance, she said repeatedly that they had an adequate number of agents. She wouldn't say the number, but she said whatever that number was, it was enough. Did you catch that?
Yeah, absolutely. And she would speak in generalities. And she, quite frankly, there were some Democrats who openly admitted, hey, I'm trying to help you here, and then called for her resignation because she was just not answering any of the most basic questions today. I thought it was one of the most unifying moments in Congress, on the Hill, for the country today, because you saw both Democrats and Republicans alike coming together, calling for her resignation because of her incompetency and her inability to tell the truth and her dishonesty today.
Do you see it this way? I felt like it was a microcosm a little bit of the people versus the deep state. She came in there with, 15 people, security, lawyers, PR people, this huge entourage. And her mission was, and she was backed up by them, I'm sure this was the strategy, to say nothing, to say next to nothing. That is not cooperative. That is dishonest. And she was holding back. Anyway, do you know what I mean about the deep state and the people?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, she was very defiant. She wouldn't resign today. I offered her my time to be able to do that. She won't resign. If Biden or his administration won't fire her, we ought to hold her in contempt of Congress for refusing to answer our questions. And we ought to have a vote on impeaching her. I just moments ago, Greg, filed articles of impeachment. I did it as a privileged motion. I'm tired of strongly worded letters. I want action. This privileged motion will force a vote on her impeachment in the next 48 hours.
South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace on Greg Kelly Report. So she filed articles of impeachment on Director Cheatle, as did Florida Congressman Greg Steube, someone you often see on Newsmax. And since most Democrats on the committee were asking for her resignation as well, I would think it is likely to happen if there is, in fact, an impeachment hearing. Representative Byron Donalds of Florida, also a member of the committee, as I mentioned, spoke with Newsmax host Todd Starnes.
Congressman, you were in that room. What did you make of the director's testimony today?
The director's testimony was an embarrassment. She knew full well coming in that members wanted answers. And I want to be clear for everybody. This is not just about President Trump. And what happened to him was a tragedy. It is by the grace of God that he survived and he is still with us and still running for president. But this isn't about this. It's about President Trump, President Biden, President Obama, President Clinton, and everybody else that the Secret Service protects. And if you have holes in your chain of command or your ability to see threats, then that is not good for our republic. So when she came in with no answers, with non-answers, with deflecting to the FBI, with the phony statements of taking responsibility without actually holding herself responsible or people in her agency responsible, that is not good. It was a terrible testimony. She should resign immediately. Quite frankly, Joe Biden, if you can find him, needs to fire her today.
You know, this is just really shocking, some of the stuff coming out of this hearing today. We understand, Congressman, that there were no recordings. They did not save any of the comms recordings, so there's no information right now on what exactly happened. How significant is that they didn't secure those radio communications?
It's very concerning. That's why I know that the FBI is looking at the actual scene. They're supposed to be doing their own independent evaluation. I say no to any of that. I think it's important right now, and this could be House and Senate. It doesn't have to just be the House, because this is a serious matter. What we need to do, in my view, is that you need to have Congress investigate this matter, and that way we get to the bottom of it, because we've seen this dance before where an agency says we did our own internal review and we took care of things. To me, that's simply not good enough. It might have been good enough if Director Cheatle came in today with concrete answers for the things that she could speak publicly to. Maybe also have a closed hearing, a classified hearing for the members, so the members can get full accountability of everything. Because I get it, there are things that Secret Service does not want to talk about in an open session, and I respect that. But what we saw today in oversight was a debacle. It was a travesty. She should be ashamed of herself.
That's Florida Representative Byron Donalds on Newsmax. All right, shifting back now to the presidential race. Many Democrats and state delegations stepped up almost immediately in support of Vice President Harris, as hard as that is to believe. And with several state delegations, including Texas and her home state of California, holding special meetings last night, Harris already has the support of more than 1,976 delegates that she would need to win on the first ballot. However, the two top Democrats, Senate Leader Chuck Schumer and Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, the top Democrat in the House, are holding back their support of Harris. As you know, former President Obama also holding back his support of Harris until, at least Schumer and Jeffries say, until they have a chance to meet with Harris personally. Delegates are still free to vote for the candidate of their choice at next month's Democratic National Convention. So she's already in a good place, but, a lot could happen before the convention and at the convention. This is New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney on Wake Up America this morning.
Congresswoman, so nice to have you back on this morning. Here's my first question, and I'm just, where is Joe Biden?
Rob, who is our president? It's, he calls a lid early. He hasn't been seen in a week. Apparently, he called on a press conference with Kamala Harris yesterday. But this is really an important security question. He's the commander in chief, the leader of the free world, the president of the United States. Where is he? And why hasn't he come out and done an address to America about this other than calling in on the phone? Now, he should at least announce that he's going to do it. And apparently that's going to happen. But your clip that you just showed is so scary. Look, I'm a lawyer. I passed one of the most difficult bar exams in the country, the New York bar exam, Florida, Connecticut. How she passed the California bar exam and became attorney general of the huge state is amazing. But remember, Nancy Pelosi, also from San Francisco, famously said, I can get a glass of water elected as long as it has a D after it. And the Democrats are going to do everything they can to retain power, and they're going to do everything they can to undermine, let me say it, our democratic process. While they blamed, and threaten and scare and get everybody so worked up over, President Trump undermining our democratic process, they just did. They just forced out the president of the United States, who was running, who received 14 million votes from Democrats all across this nation in primaries. And they're going to say, nope, he's not winning in the polls or he's not competent to run. So we're going to get him out and we're going to put her in. If the case is that he's not competent, then he has to resign because he's not competent to actually be the president of the United States to make these difficult decisions. And this is a real problem. And I don't understand why anyone can support what the Democrats are doing, regardless of who they put up at this point.
So did Joe Biden drop out on Sunday because he's in the throes of dementia or Alzheimer's or both? Or did he simply drop out because he was forced to by Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, the Clintons, Barack Obama, because the poll numbers showed that he was going to lose to Donald Trump? If he dropped out because he's suffering from dementia, he can no longer continue to serve. But if he dropped out for other reasons, any other reason, well, then Democrats and voters should have the opportunity to choose who they want to be their standard bearer in November. It shouldn't be a coronation for Kamala, right?
Well, there you go. You see the elites and the monarchy of the Democratic Party deciding who's going to be the candidate for all of the Democrats. They're not going through a democratic process. They don't care as much as they project that this is a democratic process and they're all about democracy and Trump is a threat to democracy and Republicans are a threat to democracy. No administration in the modern history has been more pro-democracy, shall I say, or pro-constitutional republic than President Trump. Pro-freedom.
New York Republican Claudia Tenney on Wake Up America with Rob Finnerty. Radio host and former California gubernatorial candidate Larry Elder, also a former presidential candidate, spoke with Sebastian Gorka, who filled in last night on Rob Schmitt Tonight.
So what is Kamala Harris's actual record, Larry?
Well, as was pointed out, she prosecuted a bunch of people for petty crimes. Her defense is going to be, all I was a DA. I did not pass the laws. All I did was to enforce them. That's going to be her argument. This business about her having a cackle, I've been following her career for a long time, Seth, and I must tell you, I never heard that until she became vice president. And I want to warn my fellow Republicans who are kind of taking this for granted. Understand, she ran for the DA in the Bay Area twice. She won. She ran AG in California twice. She won. She ran for senator in California. She won. She did bail out of the 2020 election before any contest, but she was on the ticket with Joe Biden, and she won. She's never lost an election. And while the incompetence of the Biden administration is equally to her, they're stapled together. The inflation, she owns that. She owns the borders. She owns high gas prices. Do not underestimate the ability of the media to transform her into a combination of Joan of Arc and Rosa Parks. I already see it right now. Now she's out defending Roe v. Wade. Now she's out defending the rights, voting rights. They're gonna concentrate on those kinds of things. Orange man bad. Donald Trump is a fascist, to divert attention from the fact that 2/3 of Americans believe we are on the wrong track.
All right, we've only got a minute left. I'm going to ask you the question. We don't rehearse any of this. I'm asking this without knowing what you're going to say. Is her being the nominee bad for President Trump? Better? What's your take, Larry? You're the sage.
I think ultimately it's going to be worse for Trump because of what I said. The media is going to transform her into a heroine. And you know President Trump very well, Sab. You know he's going to come up with a nickname, and no matter what the nickname is, no matter how he says it, he will be accused of, wait for it, sexism and racism. Yeah. So she'll be playing those cards. The media will be playing that card against Donald
But Larry, they've already called him a Nazi for 8 years. Does it matter now whether he's a Nazi again?
Well, I think it's even worse to be a Nazi.
They call you, hang on. They call you the black face of white supremacy.
The black face of white supremacy. But I think it's worse to be a sexist and a racist Nazi than just a regular Nazi.
Well, there you go. Trump will come up with a nickname, you know that, and it will immediately be deemed as sexist and racist again, or he will be deemed as sexist and racist again. I'm telling you, everything she hasn't done as vice president, the whole borders are thing, the word salads no longer matter. Like the facts just don't exist. I would never tell you to change the channel from Newsmax, but it is imperative, absolutely imperative, that you check up on mainstream media. It's all hail Kamala. And Republican vice presidential nominee Senator J.D. Vance held his own rally in his hometown of Middletown, Ohio.
We went to Milwaukee on Monday morning, and I had no idea. I thought maybe he was going to ask me, but I thought I might ask somebody else. There were a lot of good guys running. Marco Rubio, a dear friend of mine, really great public servant, a number of other folks as well. So I had no idea what was coming. And when the president called me and asked me, he said, "Would you like to run as my vice presidential running mate?" I said, "Well, yeah, of course." Right? What do you... We didn't come all this way to say no. But he did something that was really amazing afterwards. He said, "Well, what do you think about the statement I'm about to put out?" Of course, he put it out on social media. It's one of the things I love about President Trump is that he speaks directly to people. He doesn't allow a bunch of consultants to filter him. He is who he is, and that's why a lot of us love him. But he's talking about this statement, and I've got him on speakerphone, and my kid's in the background, my 7-year-old son. We've got 3 kids, and our 7-year-old is our oldest. His name is Ewan, and Ewan is talking in the background of Pokemon or some other God-forbidden subject. I'm like, "Son, I love you, but could you please, this is the most important phone conversation I've ever gotten. So please stop talking about Pikachu for 1 second. Let me take his phone call." And my son comes over to the phone, and the president hears him, and President Trump says, "Who is that?" I said, "That's my 7-year-old son." And he says, "Well, put him on the phone." I'm like, oh, God, here it is. He's going to offer it and take it back because my 7-year-old's going to say something really weird right now. And he reads off the statement. He reads where he talks about my military service and my business background. He says, "Young man, what do you think about that? Do you like what I said about your dad?" And my son goes, "Yeah." And that's it. And that was the endorsement he needed. The statement went out 3 minutes later. But that is the kind of guy that Donald Trump is, and that's the guy that the media doesn't let you see. He actually cares about people's families. He cares about my family, but he cares about your family too. And he wants to believe that his generation left this country off in a better place than when they found it. That's why he's done this. I mean, talk about myself all day, but let's talk about the man who was a business leader who had billions of dollars, who didn't need any of the sacrifices that public service created, and yet he went out there and he did it anyway. That's the type of people we want to become public servants, and thank God he served for 4 years as President of the United States. And now, ladies and gentlemen, after 4 years of Joe Biden's presidency, or whoever actually is calling the shots in Joe Biden's White House, are we ready to re-elect President Donald J. Trump again? Now, when I was researching what I would say at the RNC, and I mostly write my own stuff. I'm not going off a teleprompter right now. You can probably tell that. The president actually came out. He called me right before I went on and gave my speech. And he said, JD, you're going to do great. Just give me a little pep talk. You're going to be wonderful. The crowd out there is great. Just go out there and speak from your heart. And I said, sir, that's right. That's exactly what I'm going to do. But got to be honest with you. If I totally screw it up, it's too late. No takebacks, right? You've already asked me. I've already accepted. No takebacks. So this speech is just going to be icing on the cake. Thank you, ma'am. God bless you. I was. But here's the thing. I was researching what I was going to say about the president, and I realized that over a lifetime of business leadership, and then, of course, a few years of public service, the country has made a lot of stupid decisions, and President Donald Trump was right about every single one being a mistake.
Senator J.D. Vance, the Republican nominee for vice president, speaking in his hometown. On Wall Street, after a positive start to the new week, we do have some slightly red numbers at the opening this morning. Corporate earnings, as I mentioned yesterday, are mostly going to highlight the headlines on Wall Street this week. Be sure to keep up with all of the news today and tonight on Newsmax, Newsmax.com, and on Newsmax Plus. For the most complete lineup of your favorite shows and guests, go to NewsmaxPlus.com. Get signed up. You get Rob Schmitt Tonight, Greg Kelly Reports, Greta, Carl Higbee, National Report, Wake Up America, and much, much more. Documentaries, special programming, and analysis from people like Governor Mike Huckabee, political analyst Mark Halpern, Alan Dershowitz, and many others. NewsmaxPlus.com. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. I appreciate that. Please share it with your friends and family. And also, please subscribe from whatever podcast platform you may be listening to. Enjoy your Tuesday. Have some vanilla ice cream, maybe with your tacos. Taco Tuesday, right? And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.